Want to welcome everybody here. Want to thank all my colleagues in the Senate Republican Conference as well as the Assembly Republican Conference for being here today on yet another episode of We Told You So. You know, I really do get tired. I said this actually, I think it was last week. I really get tired, actually. I never thought I would get tired of being right, but I'm sort of tired when it comes to my Democratic colleagues and the governor and the policies of this state, especially around affordability, especially around energy. So, note, we had our press conference a couple weeks ago on the energy piece. My colleagues, Senator O'Mara, Senator Walczyk, Senator Matera, all talked about our solutions to make energy and utility bills go down, to return ratepayers' money back to them. And one thing this conference, and I know the Assembly Republican Conference has called for many years, is an accounting of how much the CLCPA programs would actually cost New Yorkers and who's paying for it. How are we paying for it, right? Those are, to me, very valid questions to ask, even if you support the policy. If you're out there watching and you think that these are the best things in a transparent, accountable government, we still tell you how much it costs. When a school district builds a new football stadium, everyone can be in support of it. You still know how much that costs you, the taxpayer. And for years while we asked, we never got an answer. It was, I think on the bill, every bill, it was TBD, to be determined. No doubt, to be determined when you opened your bill. And we were always told the same thing. We can't afford not to do it. That's what we were, I've heard that. I've heard Senator Kruger said that on the floor of the Senate, on the floor of the state Senate. Billions of dollars. We just can't afford not to do it. Well, maybe from the Upper East Side of Manhattan, that might be the view. But I can tell you for a lot of New Yorkers, that is not the view. And we find a memo is, that's leaked. I use that term very loosely. I even saw something on Twitter, some media folks were saying, just to be clear, you know, we didn't get this memo in like the back of the parking garage at like 9 o'clock at night. It was literally emailed to people, right? It was emailed. So that's, you know, it's not exactly deep throat, but it was emailed to everybody here, I'm sure, and it was on Twitter within minutes. And it said, upstate families, upstate households can look at $4,100 additional annually. Downstate, I guess, you know, the MTA region, looking at $2,300. Gas could top $5.25 at the pump within 5 years. It would drive up the cost of gas by more than $2. This is from NYSERDA. In my experience, and I'm sure some of you who are covering this and those watching, my experience is when the government tells you it's X, it's always more. If they say it's going to cost this much, it is probably going to cost you. So these are the forecasts from NYSERDA. It could even be higher. But it's the first time that anyone's dared to put an actual number to what these programs, cap and invest, was sort of the, I guess, main culprit, at least in the NYSERDA memo, but it was the CLCPA in general is going to add these costs. So at the very time that my colleagues, and I want you to just think about this, our colleagues, the Democratic members of the legislature and the governor, have championed these policies for years. For years, they have told us, doesn't matter what the cost is, we can't afford not to do it. To be determined. They've told us that for years, since the CLCPA was put into place in 2019. And at the same time, the last year and a half, they've been talking about affordability. We have got to do something about affordability. At the same time, championing these policies that they unequivocally know are driving up costs and making life less affordable. You can't just say affordability and wish it into existence when you're passing laws that are going to add $4,100 to people's bills, that are going to make gas potentially $5 or more at the pump. They want to be California. We're on our way. It shouldn't surprise anybody. At the same time, I mean, I saw Senator Harkin, he doubled down in light of the NYSERDA memo. Again, you know, I'm sure in Scarsdale and Westchester, I'm sure they look at $2,300 and they say that's nothing. But for my constituents, $4,100 is a reason to leave this state. And by the way, that's what they're doing. $4,100 is going to chase people out of this state. It's going to chase employers out of this state. $5 gas is going to chase people out of this state. It shouldn't surprise us that this, I guess, is what affordability looks like to the Senate Democrats. They just had a member that put a bill forward to raise his salary, our salary, to $180,000 a year. Can you think of something more tone deaf? I can't. I really can't. The best thing I can say about this place is it still surprises me after 12 years. Honest to God. I just cannot believe it that at a time when we're talking about affordability, he's trying to make it more affordable for him, for his family. Not for you. You get $4,100 extra on your bill. You can thank Senator Sanders. You can thank Senator Harkin. You can thank the Senate Democrats. And the governor, as she is, this is like a great trend for her, at the moment of demarcation, right? At the critical moment, when all these policies come to roost, what does she do? I wouldn't doubt she's going to try to get the budget, you know, she's going to try to get changes. At most, it'll be a delay. That's her move. Delay, pause. Let's get through the election. Then we'll do it. Let's get me through my election, her, right? Because she gets a 4-year term. So then she'll be all for it. Yeah. Then she'll be all for, just like she was literally 4 days ago, 5 days ago. She has championed these policies. I'm glad, if she's seeing the light, I'm grateful. I really am. But my colleagues, mark my words, the budget will be late because of this, because they will fight to continue to make sure you pay $4,100 more. They're going to fight to make sure that you maybe pay $5 a gallon of gas, because you know what? They believe that is the only way to really make the environment better, make it safer, make it more green, lower emissions. That's the price you got to pay, because we can't afford not to do it. The truth is, we can't afford to do it. New York, you cannot say, Democrats cannot talk about affordability and champion these policies. I mean, and again, tone deaf. We're talking about, that really should just be the, New Yorkers for Clean Air, a group that I've never met with, but an organization that's out there, obviously. They came out in light of this, report. They came out, I mean, think about this. Think about how desperate you have to be, how grasping the last straw you got to be to say, you know what we're going to do? I know, we get the right answer. We're going to come out and say you're going to save $266 a year. 266, that wasn't even the amount of the rebate check that the governor sent out. Can you imagine if I said to you, you owe me $4,100 more, but here, I'll tell you what, for you, I'll take off $266. I mean, that is what they came out with. That's desperate. That is desperate. New Yorkers aren't going to save anything. And by the way, New Yorkers know that. No one from the government has ever saved them a nickel in this state. All we have done is add cost on top of cost, tax on top of tax, regulation on top of regulation, to where we have suffocated people with one of the most expensive, least free, least business-friendly states, and now it's hitting homeowners directly in their pocketbooks. And then we're going to say the word affordability. If I just whisper it into existence, maybe you won't notice that I just tacked on $4,100 onto your bill. Or maybe we're working towards $5 a gallon of gas. But you know what? We can't afford not to do it. It's just unbelievable. And we said this would happen in 2019. I debated the bill with then Senator Todd Kaminsky. You remember the guy that ran for DA in Nassau County. He didn't get to be the DA, but he ran. He debated this bill with me at 2:30 in the morning. They put it on the floor at 2:30 in the morning because they were hoping that everyone was going to be asleep and wouldn't be watching the debate. And we said then, and we've said for several years, my colleagues are going to hear from Senator O'Mara, Senator Walczyk, my colleagues in the Assembly, we have said for years, this is going to drive up costs. Any way you slice it, no matter how much Senator Harkin or others, Senator Kruger, say it's not going to drive up costs, it is. And don't take my word for it. Take NYSERDA's word for it. I didn't know what the number was. I knew there'd be a number. $4,100. Just unbelievable. And it's very disappointing, but it's not surprising. And I will tell you, for New Yorkers who are watching, if you have to make a decision. Either you're okay with these energy prices going up, either you're okay with these policies driving you, your family out of this state, or you're not. I would say to drive some people out of office before you get driven out of the state. That's the only answer. You need different policies, and to get that, you need different policy makers. And you need more people like I'm going to introduce next. Our chair on energy, someone who I know has been beating the drum on this, whether it's the impact it's going to have on jobs and working people, either literally their employment or just not only, can you imagine you're unemploying somebody and here's $4,100 more on top of it, which I'm sure you can afford now that you don't have a job, that we chased out of this state. But he's been beating the drum on this as our ranker on energy. He's done a fantastic job, and he has told me, he has promised me that he is only going to be 10 minutes or less. That's what he's told me. I don't know. We'll see. You're all got watches. But really, he does a great job as our ranker on energy and our voice for energy, not only on Long Island, but across the state, and that is Senator Mario Matera.
All I'm going to say is ditto, because I'm going to tell you, everything that Leader Ort has just said is so true. You know, it's been very, very interesting times. We all know this, but you know what? All of our New York City residents, they're suffering right now. And you know one thing about our leader, I just want to say thank you for having the, how could I say, you know, the thank you for the position right now to be the ranker on energy. And I just want to thank our whole Republican conference. I want to thank the Assembly Republican Conference with the leadership of Ed Ra, doing a great job already with the membership. Thank Phil Gray. He's now the new ranking member in the Assembly. Phil Palisano, I just want to say thank you. You're always going to be here. I know you're going to be speaking. But to all my fellow Republicans in the Senate Energy Committee, Tom O'Mara, Senator Walczyk, you know, we've been having such amazing Energy Committee meetings that we had one today, by the way. And it's amazing that it's at 12:30 when we were having our press conference. So it's just amazing how that happened. But today is the culmination of everything that we've been saying for years regarding the financial impact and the lack of common sense of the CLCPA. Everything that we have said has always come true, and now it is coming out into the light for our residents to see with the release of the NYSERDA memo. It's amazing how that memo just came out. Did it want to come out? We all know the reason why it came out. And you know, you said something, Leader, you know, as my mom would say all the time, and probably all of our parents said to us, don't let me tell you that I told you so. But here we are. We have been warning Albany legislative Democrats and Governor Hochul for years that the CLCPA and the other illogical energy policies will cost our ratepayers not millions, not billions, but trillions. And now we can say to all my colleagues across the aisle, we have said, yes, we have told you so. Ever since the CLCPA has been passed in 2019, it has caused our residents heartache due to unfunded mandates and the lack of realistic energy plan. These residents do not want these energy policies and are now paying more and don't even know it. And they have no idea why and how they're paying more. The CLCPA has already cost New Yorkers billions, and it is time to stop the bleeding. My colleagues across the aisle tell us that, guess what? That is part of doing business. Is that amazing? It's part of doing business to hurt people in their pockets and pocketbooks. With the bills that they're paying right now, 100% to 150% in certain areas were due to the mandates of the CLCPA. New York State needs to act now to protect our ratepayers. Albany Democrats keep saying in this session and in the public that their policies will save New Yorkers money. It's amazing. Senator Harkin, Senator Kruger, how is that possible? How is it saving money? Now look what's going to say. Let's see what they're going to say. But that is nothing but a farce. The CLCPA put all New Yorkers, all eggs in one basket with wind, solar, and battery storage. We talked about this all the time in our committee meetings. Wind, solar, and battery storage do not create enough energy, and battery storage is nothing but a dangerous experiment. We all know lithium-ion batteries, they go on fire. They cannot be put out. I know all our residents on Long Island, they do not want this in their backyards. Look at Morse Landing. Look at Orange County, East Hampton, New York. Morse Landing is still burning, and it's amazing. In California, just like what the leader said, we're trying to compare ourselves to California, and right now they're in disarray. I know all Long Islanders do not know that a majority of New Yorkers agree. New York was trying to go all electric by 2030 and carbon-free by 2045. But our electric grid is not ready. We need to invest in infrastructure first. Governor Hochul's 2024 and 2025 budgets had all electric, but now somehow Governor Hochul has accepted reality and suspended the all-electric unfunded mandate. Since my colleagues in the State Senate and the Assembly Republican Conference and I made it clear that this is not feasible. Her suspension is needed, but she must commit to repealing it all, not just using a gimmick for this election year. Just like congestion pricing. We all know what happened with that. Guess what? You press pause, after the election, you press play. That is why Governor Hochul also paused the all-electric school bus mandate, another unfunded mandate, which is going to hurt all of our students, our families, and all our taxpayers. Governor Hochul even signed the 100-foot rule to appease, and I'm going to say it again, to appease her members of her party. And all that did was hurt all New Yorkers, ratepayers, and the hardworking men and women of labor that is restricted by these energy choices. In fact, my unions that are here today, organizations and businesses, had to sue in 2023 to stop her senseless ban of natural gas. Imagine that, to go and ban natural gas. Let's talk about Berkeley, California, the case. Guess what? They lost the case and they even lost the appeal. It's against federal law to ban natural gas. It is time to work with experts, unions, and elected officials to come up with a realistic plan that protects our residents, our workers, our businesses, and our environment. We want New Yorkers to stay here right now, and they are leaving. Just like what the leader said, 2.5 million, that's a real number, have exited out of New York State because of unfunded mandates like the CLCPA since 2020. Tennessee, Florida, Carolinas, Texas, we all know the states where they're moving to. And all the good people, in other words, all those pension monies, all my members, they're leaving because they said, you know what, the pension is good, but it's not enough to afford to be living in this state. That is why we need to invest in our infrastructure to fix our antiquated grid before we transition into renewable energy. This has to happen before we even think about going all electric. We have fought successfully for the Nessie natural gas pipeline capacity. This conference, the Senate and Republican conference in the Assembly, it is necessary. This is necessary. It is not a luxury at this point. Our trucks on the roadways. I went to the governor. I'm going to say it again because I have to repeat myself to the media. The trucks, hundreds of trucks on the roadways right now, get filled up in Pennsylvania. 7 pounds of CO2 a mile. Where's the environmentalists? I want to know where they are about clean energy, right? We also need the Constitution natural gas pipeline. But guess what the governor did with that one? She's going to make sure that that's not going to happen. We need to be self-sufficient and self-reliant with all of our energy resources. We need to stop relying on other states and other nations. Then we need to examine every single source of clean and reliable energy that is efficient and economical. Green hydrogen, Northport, the linear generator we're doing right now. Geothermal networks, Jamestown project, how important that is. This is good jobs. These are good union-paying jobs. New York City steam condensate, that's so important. All that condensate water, that water could be used recirculating, and guess what? That'll save the capacity on fossil fuels. Sewage heat recovery, thermal energy, Stony Brook. We're going to be doing the university. How great is that? In other words, that we're going to be making sure that's thermal energy, that we're going to be using wastewater to generate energy. Retooling our existing power plants with carbon capture, combined cycle, Caithness 2, 50% plus carbon-free, like Caithness 1 on Long Island. Nuclear energy is great, everybody, but guess what? That's 15 to 20 years down the road. We need to worry about today. Indian Point, look what Governor Cuomo did. With Hochul, because she was a lieutenant governor. Indian Point, that should have never been shut down. I always say goals are good, but mandates are bad. And we need a plan and not a ban. The CLCPA is nothing but an unfunded mandate. Our conferences are committed to finding clean energy solutions to protect our environment. At the same time, we are equally committed to protecting the jobs and the hardworking union members, our ratepayers, our small businesses, and they are being impacted and affected by the ill-conceived CLCPA and the other energy policies from Albany Democrats. As a former union leader, I'm almost done, everybody. As a former union leader with Plumbers Local 200 and a member of the UA, I will always stand up for the hardworking men and women of labor. We stand here today to say to the Governor Hochul and Albany Democrats, it is time to repeal the CLCPA. It is time to repeal cap and invest and return the $2.4 billion that NYSERDA is holding to help our ratepayers today so they can put food on the table and just survive here in New York State. It is time to repeal all electric buildings. Look at the city of New York right now. Guess what? We did a great job at this conference. But the city of New York, they do have all-electric buildings. And it is a disaster. Developers are leaving. At the same time, we need the senseless man to come to a realistic plan. We need to stand ready to work with Albany Democrats, but that's very difficult, by the way, and need to know that they are committed to protecting all New Yorkers. And I'm going to tell you something. I have no idea where they're going and where they're heading. But you know what? I just want to say, we all need to speak up. The leader said something that was so important. We need to make sure that we elect the right people to be in office. Because I'm going to tell you something, across the aisle, I have no idea. They drank the Kool-Aid. I have no idea what their thoughts or patterns are. But I just want to say thank you very, very much for making me the ranker on energy. And now I'm going to introduce somebody that's been, he's been a patriot on this subject. Assemblyman Phil Palisano with the Assembly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mario. Thank you, Leader Ort. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks to all my colleagues. In 2019, we passed the CLCPA. Our conference was sounding the alarm then. We were ignored. We simply asked for a cost-benefit analysis, a technical and feasibility analysis. It was ignored. Not just us. Members from the industry, stakeholders, multiple interviewers, 2 members of the Climate Action Council asked for cost-benefit analysis, ignored. The governor ignored it, the legislature ignored it. At budget hearings, questioning Doreen Harris, co-chair of the Climate Action Council, how much is this going to cost ratepayers? She couldn't answer the question. She says, basically, she said, we have to see what we're going to do before you know what it's going to cost. Probably back to Nancy Pelosi talking about a health care plan, saying we got to pass it before we find out what's in it. Governor Hochul has said the CLCPA was before her time, so she doesn't really take responsibility for it. Well, let's talk about some of the numbers. We know about the NYSERDA report. These aren't our numbers. These are proven numbers. Cost estimates of what the CLCPA is going to cost. More than $250 billion, upwards to $500 billion or more, according to the Empire Senate. July of 2023, Politico had an article, PSC approved $43 billion in future ratepayer increases to pay for the green energy mandates. Governor Hochul was in office then. Cap and invest passed in a budget under Governor Hochul. Former DEC commissioner was out there saying if we pass that, it would increase gas prices at the pump by 62 cents a gallon and increase natural gas home heating costs by 80%. The All-Electric Buildings Act, the Builders Association said it would increase home ownership costs by almost $25,000. Of course, we all know the mother of all unfunded mandates, the EV school bus mandate, $8 to $15 billion in replacement costs before we get to the billions in charging infrastructure and in energy costs. And still to this day, I love the media asked the governor, why are we asking our school districts to convert their whole entire fleets in 2035, a full 5 years before the state of New York has to convert their medium heavy-duty fleet? Why are we asking school districts and property taxpayers to be the guinea pig for this social experiment? How about the state of New York does it first, show it can be done feasibly and responsibly and affordable? They won't because it can't be done. You have reports from 3 different places that said to convert your home over from natural gas to full electrification would cost anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000. You have the EV mandate laws. You have the ACT regulation, the Advanced Clean Car 2 regulation that came in under Governor Hochul, which will devastate the trucking industry and the auto industry once fully implemented. The energy plan that was just advanced, that was talked about as all the above, in certain scenarios, to give me full electrification, would increase energy-related costs, transportation, heating, equipment, some more than $500 a month. Their numbers, not our numbers. the cost of residential electricity rate in 2019 was 17 cents a kilowatt hour. Today it's over 25 cents a kilowatt hour, 50% higher than the national average. Governor Hochul and the Democrats in Albany own this. They can't talk about affordable energy when this is on their policy resume. And we haven't even gotten to the reliability concerns that have been brought up by the NYSO. I've listened to Governor Hochul and her spokesperson time again say we're for an all the above approach and want affordable and reliable energy. The policy resume doesn't match up to that. The policies don't match the words. She is quick to blame the utilities for the rate increases, but the Democrats are failed to recognize their green energy mandates, the march to full electrification, are driving up utility bills. And then last week, the memo, the leader talked about $4,000 for natural gas heating costs, $2.23 a gallon on top of current. Diesel, $2.41 a gallon on top of the current. Other parts of that memo, if you didn't see, for small and medium commercial-sized businesses, 46% increase in the utility cost, depending on the utility and size of the facility. And the other one, trucking delivery costs, increase of over 60%. What does that mean? Talk about affordable housing and affordable food. Groceries. Higher grocery prices, higher home ownership. They own this. That's what's affordable. How often do they have to, what more do they have to hear? What more do they have to see to take action? It's more than long past due to pump the brakes on this because the ratepayers are at a breaking point. They want immediate relief right now. They don't want to subsidize EV purchases with their rates. They don't want to subsidize electric heat pumps. So our plans, are very similar plans. We've talked about a direct rebate back to people, but certainly the $2.4 billion that the utilities that's in NYSERDA coffers that can provide direct immediate relief to ratepayers. This money's already been collected from the ratepayer already. So let's give that back to them in direct ratepayer relief rather than them having to subsidize someone's EV purchase or electric heat pump. The taxes, fees, assessments, and surcharges on our utility bill, that sometimes, in some cases, adds up to more than 20% of your utility bills. Let's immediately suspend that, rebate that, give them that relief right now because people need it. The white paper that NYSO came out said the same thing. The cost of the energy costs, declining generation and supply, and retirement, plant retirements, rising fuel costs, and pipeline constraints, and of course the growing demand for electrification without increasing our base load generation. On the reliability, the NYSO said short and long-term reliability gaps. In 2040, you need 27 to 40 gigawatts of dispatchable emission-free resources. Our total generating capacity in New York is 41 gigawatts with wind, solar, hydro, natural gas, oil, and nuclear. Wind and solar does not count towards that because it's not dispatchable. So we don't know what the technology is. It's not there yet. We think nuclear, advanced nuclear, carbon capture, sequestration, renewable natural gas, but we're not there yet. So we need natural gas. People want natural gas. They want energy choice. There was a poll last summer. 71% of New Yorkers do not want a ban on natural gas, including 76% of independents. Two-thirds of New Yorkers want a balance between renewable resources and natural gas, including 74% of Democrats. That same poll said 80% said their utility bills are too high. You don't need a poll to say that, but the fact of the matter is people want energy choice and they want natural gas. And all this is being done. 60% of New Yorkers heat their homes with natural gas. 40% of our generation comes from natural gas. We need to build more power online. We need natural gas, build new natural gas, repower existing natural gas. Now, natural gas has always been referred to as a bridge fuel, correct? You don't tear down a bridge before you build a new one, do you? But that's exactly what they're doing. Rest assured, our Senate and Assembly Republican Conference will continue to be outspoken about this, continue to hold the feet to the fire of the governor and the Democrats in Albany, but we will continue to advocate for a common sense energy agenda that prioritizes affordability, reliability, feasibility, fuel diversity, and energy choice because New York families and businesses deserve it. It's my pleasure now to introduce my colleague and friend, Senator Mark Walseth.
If you are receiving, and appreciate the media being here, if you're receiving the same phone calls that we are, and I'm sure the Democrats across the other side of the aisle are receiving in their offices as well, New York State residents are actually really concerned about the affordability of their energy bills right now, today. mine in the 49th Senate District are screaming about it. Leader Ort, Leader Palmisano, I thank you for putting together the common sense and affordability conferences here to talk about some of the solutions. People are saying the prices are too high. They can't afford to pay. They're asking me questions about balance billing, about payment plans with their utility companies. The utility companies already have 300,000 New York households in arrears, unable to pay existing bills that they have right now. Energy right now, already too unaffordable. And what do the Democrat conferences do? To New York ratepayers, they say, hold my beer, prices are going up. They took it as a personal challenge. They're doubling down on this issue. The governor had the gall to leak out a few of the, I think, underrated costs for where your energy prices are going in the state of New York. And they said, absolutely not. There's no way we would ever compromise on any of this. New Yorkers can't afford it. The governor called it cap and invest, and I was on the assembly floor when they passed the CLCPA, and they called this aspirational. These are goals. Don't worry, this isn't a mandate. These are just good climate goals for us to reach. I had a feeling, so I voted no then, and now we see the fruit. The governor came out and she said, don't worry, I'm going to put together this great program called Cap and Invest. The idea being that we're going to cap the amount of emissions in New York State, and we're going to invest all of that money from taxing the corporations. Obviously, that has a trickle down to all of the people who pay any bill in the state of New York. But we're going to invest that into green energy. Well, look at all of the investments, the billions that we've spent on green energy. Nobody's seen a reduction in their bill as a result, and yet they double down. In October, the Albany Supreme Court said, hey, Governor Hochul, your DEC is in violation of the law. You were supposed to make regs within a year of Governor Hochul's Cap and Invest program. The governor put it on pause. The Cap and Invest program requires 60% of emissions in 2030, 15% of state emissions in 2050. DEC, as Leader Palmisano pointed out, has failed, and so has NYSERDA on the Climate Action Council, has failed to acknowledge that they're even slowing the roll on these regs. We don't know the status of what the actual cap and invest looks like, but we do know that this is not a cap and invest. It is a ban and a tax. Banning use of certain fuels and taxing the hell out of the people that use them. And NYSERDA just showed us a little bit last week in their memo. $2.23 additional on a gallon of gas. Do you think the price of gas is going to go down? This will be on top of, and they said, could exceed. Well, that's the low number, $2.23 on their numbers right now, saying this is what we want to tax and maybe invest in green energy that is going to only increase your bill. $4,100, as you pointed out, Leader, on a home. You have 300,000 people already in arrears that can't pay their unaffordable energy bills right now. And you're going to add $4,000 at least to their energy bills when this is in full effect? They say affordability, but they have no idea what that actually means. We have an opportunity to do something here. 46% increase in utility bills for businesses. Well, I don't know if the Democrats across the other side of the aisle or Kathy Hochul has heard from any businesses recently. I certainly have. They're talking about closing doors. I can't even have a meeting in Albany, certainly walking around the district, anytime I bump into somebody, energy is the top concern. People are pretty tuned into this issue. I can't even have a meeting that used to be about school aid without a bunch of teachers or superintendents or business officials of a school talking to me about energy prices in the state of New York. I can't meet with a healthcare provider without them talking to me about energy prices in the state of New York. Their policy is impacting every person, every industry in this state and making it unaffordable to live here. 46% increase on utility bills for businesses. 60% increase for operating delivery trucks. 60%. So for the people who don't pay a rate in New York City and have their rent frozen, well, guess what? You receive something from a delivery truck at some point in your course of life. The Democrats that you elected are going to make your life in New York City, in New York City unaffordable as well. So this is completely unaffordable. I do have a bill that solves this. It's pretty quick. So the Albany Supreme Court gave it away. It's Senate Bill 8607, and I'm honored to work with Assemblyman Scott Gray on this. It repeals those targets. The court laid it right out for me. We put it into law. We can do a very simple repealer to repeal those targets right now and alleviate New Yorkers immediately and also in the future. The governor loves to invite people to the state, so, oh, don't worry, we're going to grow through this. We have a great opportunity. Well, if I'm a business and I'm seeing the costs that I just outlined, how interested am I in investing in New York State when I think this is where energy prices are going to be in the near future? I'm not. And obviously, we know that when we talk to the industry. So we have a very easy solution. I hope that the governor takes this up. I hope that she passes it. I hope she gets serious about it and she pushes against the Democrats on the other side of the aisle who seem to keep doubling down and ignoring how unaffordable this is for the people of the state of New York. And with that, I will introduce Assemblyman Scott Gray, the ranker on the Energy Committee in the Assembly.
Thank you, Senator Walczak. It's a pleasure. Thank you, Leader Ort. Also, thanks Leader Ra for putting me in this position of ranker, and certainly to my colleague Phil Palmisano, who has done an absolutely great job heretofore. And Senator Montero, look forward to working with you, sir. So let me just talk about a little bit about what an average New Yorker defines for affordability, right? Because that's the buzzword around here right now. So let's just talk about this. I'll highlight a couple of stories out of our district, out of my district, that are real residents experiencing real affordability issues. So a 92-year-old elderly resident had to stay in the hospital for 4 months. No one was at her home for those entire 4 months. The thermostat was set at 63 degrees. Despite that, her electric bill for 1 month was $500. That's not climate policy, that's cruelty. Completely unsustainable for seniors and for working families, for businesses, and for farms. Let me just highlight another resident in the district, completely upgraded their home with new green compliant features. You know, that's the part that Senator Harcum refers to as the invest part. So let's just talk about that. All new windows, better insulation, more efficient heating system. And let me just say what their bills went from year to year. December, year over year, $312 to $472. January, $450 to $660. February, their bill went from $530 last year to $962 this year. And if that's not enough, let me cast one more for you, and that's this person sits among you. My utility bill now exceeds my car payment, my student loan payment, internet bill, and car insurance combined. That was a tweet last night from one of you fine folks out in the audience here. So when families say they want to invest to lower their energy, that's what they're seeing. That's the results of investing and what they're seeing in results of their bills. This is not anecdotal evidence. NYSERDA is also modeling this, that families will pay more, pay thousands more, as you just heard here. This is not partisan criticism, although you might have heard a little bit of that today, but it's the governor's own agency that is sounding the alarm bells. We have been saying it for years, and the governor has finally joined in. We had 12 of our colleagues across the aisle a couple of weeks ago finally joined us on the right side of this issue. We need a serious course correction. We need to protect ratepayers while a grid is reliable and affordable. Our colleagues in the environmental quest has a price tag. It has a price tag for all New Yorkers. NYSERDA warns, you've heard it here today, $2.23 a gallon, nearly $17 for natural gas. Upstate is going to get clobbered. Households on oil, natural gas, you've heard it, $4,000 a year. Main Street's going to get hit hard. Small businesses, utility increases 46%, delivery costs 60%. Don't think for a minute that you're not going to pay that in retail prices. A course correction is needed. Common sense is needed for a change here. The state has already decommissioned 1,600 megawatts of dispatchable power, and they have 500 more megawatts on the table. So let's build first and then retire second. So you've heard the statement all along that your family is our fight. Well, I'm telling you right now, your affordability is our fight. Thank you very much.